Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases. If you want to practice what you learned today, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their English-speaking abilities.
Yeah, and absolute confidence is exactly what we are building today. I mean, this deep dive is strictly for advanced English learners.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and we aren't going to get bogged down in, where our source material originally comes from, even though these phrases technically stem from a classic Sherlock Holmes text.
Yeah, we can skip the history lesson for now.
Exactly. Instead, the goal today is to completely master 8 high-level idioms. So by the end of this, you will understand their subtle nuances so you can deploy them naturally in professional settings or high-stakes tests.
Right, because imagine you're sitting in your IELTS speaking exam, and the examiner asks you to describe a time a project failed, and you just shrug and say, I made a big mistake. It was very stressful.
Ouch. Yeah, you can almost see their eyes glaze over when you say that.
Exactly. You just lost your chance to stand out. I mean, the basic vocabulary simply doesn't capture the complexity of human experience when things go wrong.
It really doesn't.
So today, we are upgrading your linguistic toolkit. We're going to trace the anatomy of a professional disaster, from the initial failure to the eventual redemption, using advanced language at every single step.
I think it's the perfect approach. Navigating a professional crisis requires precision, which brings us to that lingering feeling we often get after a failure.
Oh, yeah.
Our first phrase perfectly captures this. It's weigh heavily on someone, and the technical definition is to cause persistent guilt or worry.
Okay, so I actually used the word stressed in a performance review once to describe a past project failure. And my manager told me it sounded like I was just, overwhelmed by paperwork, not that I had actually learned from the event.
Wow, yeah, your manager was right to point out that distinction.
Yeah, it made me realize that stressed is just the wrong tool for that job. I probably should have used way heavily. Is it really just a poetic way to say stressing me out, though?
Well, no, that's what's fascinating here. It's the mechanism of time and morality. I mean, stress is almost always forward-looking or immediate.
Right, like you're stressed about a spreadsheet due on Friday.
Exactly, or you're stressed about traffic. But when something is weighing heavily on you, it implies a lingering moral burden. It is a deep regret or guilt over a past action.
Oh, okay.
It's an unpaid emotional debt, not a temporary cash shortage, like the source's example of a decision to leave a project.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the difference between juggling too many balls right now versus dragging a heavy anchor behind you from a choice you made years ago.
Precisely. So let's look at how you might use this in that IELTS speaking part 2 scenario you talked about earlier.
Sure.
If you are asked to describe a regret, you don't say you are stressed. You say, a choice I made in college to skip an internship still weighs heavily on me.
Wow. Yeah, that immediately signals mature reflection.
It really does.
But, how do we end up dragging that anchor in the first place? I mean, often it's not just bad luck. It's because we actively ignored the warning signs and trapped ourselves.
Right.
Which leads right into our second phrase, which is fall into a pit.
Yeah, fall into a pit, which means to land in trouble of your own making.
Now, in the past, I would have just admitted I made a mistake. But how is falling into a pit different from just making an error?
Well, a mistake can be entirely innocent. If you trip over a loose cable and unplug a server, that is an accident. Nobody blames your character for that.
Right, obviously.
But a pit, that takes time. You don't just stumble into a complex career disaster out of nowhere. Falling into a pit implies you dug the hole yourself through poor judgment or, ignoring rules.
Ah, like the source's example of ignoring safety rules.
Exactly. It's the active disregard of boundaries.
It's like deciding to build a house without a blueprint, ignoring the inspectors, and then acting surprised when the roof caves in.
That's a great way to put it.
So if you are having a conversation with your boss about a vendor's failure, you could say, he ignored the client's repeated warnings, overpromised the deliverables, and eventually fell into a pit that could have been completely avoided.
Perfect, because you are communicating that the failure was systemic, not just circumstantial.
But here's where the story usually gets messy in the workplace. When you fall into a pit, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right?
No, never.
It usually creates massive friction with the people around you. Sometimes the people calling out the failure cross the line themselves. And this introduces our third phrase, have the insolence.
Yeah, have the insolence is defined as having the audacity to do something rude or disrespectful.
So why don't we just say someone is being rude? I remember telling HR once that a coworker was being rude during a meeting and they sort of brushed it off as a personality clash?
Well, that's because insolence feels entirely different. It absolutely breaks a structural rule. It really comes down to hierarchy. Like forgetting to say please or shooing too loudly is bad manners. That's rude. But insolence carries a heavy, specific weight. It means crossing a clear hierarchical or social boundary.
Right.
It is supreme arrogance, not just bad manners. It's looking at the established rules of respect and actively deciding that you are above them.
Wow. Okay. It's a difference between bumping into someone in the hallway versus intentionally walking past a security checkpoint without scanning your badge just to prove you can.
Yes, exactly.
So if you really want to report an incident to HR or convey the shock value to a colleague, you wouldn't say he was rude. You would say, I couldn't believe it. During the all-hands meeting, the new intern had the insolence to interrupt the guest speaker in front of everyone.
Yeah, that captures the collective gasp in the room perfectly. It's pure audacity. And, when someone acts with that kind of insolence, the impact isn't always just surface level annoyance.
Definitely not.
Which brings us to phrase number 4, strike deeper.
Strike deeper. So that means to be more serious or meaningful than it appears at first.
Exactly.
Is it kind of like a paper cut that actually hit a nerve? I've heard people compare this to hurting my feelings, but that feels a bit too small.
Yeah, it is like hitting a nerve. The nuance here is that strike deeper implies a profound, unexpected psychological realization or impact, rather than just momentary sadness.
So it's not just a surface tremor.
Right. If someone insults your shoes, you feel it, then it's gone. But if a mentor questions your work ethic, it causes a tectonic shift underneath everything you do.
So back in that IELTS Part 2 exam, if you have to describe a memorable conversation, you wouldn't say it made me sad. You'd elevate it.
Right.
You'd say, it was just a casual remark about my career path, but it struck deeper than he expected and made me rethink my entire set of priorities for days.
Exactly. That shows the examiner you have the vocabulary to articulate a really complex internal shift.
But, you can't just stay in that state of shock forever. When an issue strikes deep, it forces us to pivot. You have to recover and apply your intellect to solve the problem.
Yeah, you have to dig yourself out of the pit.
Exactly. And that recovery phase relies on phrase number 5, turn one's brain to something.
Which means deliberately focusing intelligence and effort on a goal.
So why not just say, think about?
Because thinking is passive. I mean, you can think about what you want for dinner while staring out the window.
Fair point.
Turning your brain to something involves active, intense, cognitive dedication. It's not passive daydreaming. It's marshaling all your mental resources toward mastery, like the source's example of learning coding.
So it's like the difference between leaving a porch light on, which vaguely lights the whole yard, versus focusing a laser pointer to cut through metal.
I love that analogy.
So if I'm explaining a new initiative to colleagues, I wouldn't say I looked into it. I'd say, to fix this software bug, I had to completely turn my brain to advanced computer programming this past month.
Exactly. It proves your level of dedication. And, once you've applied that laser focus and figured out the solution, you have to share it with the decision makers.
Right.
Which leads us to phrase 6, lay something before someone.
Lay something before someone, meaning presenting facts openly and clearly. So is that just comparing it to showing someone something?
Not exactly. Laying something before someone has a different gravity. It's about the formality.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it implies a comprehensive, structured presentation of evidence, often to an authority figure or a group that requires consensus. You aren't just passing along information, you are demanding a formal review.
So it's like an architect unrolling a giant set of blueprints on a big table in front of the city council, rather than just sketching something on a napkin.
Precisely. You are putting all your cards face up on the table.
So if I'm speaking to my boss, I might say, I laid the main financial facts before the team so everyone understood the gravity of the situation before we voted.
Perfect. It tells the listener that this was a transparent, formal presentation. And, you mentioned financial facts, which is a great transition because often the facts we lay before the team involve budgets.
Oh, always.
Right, and fixing the original problems we discussed, which brings us to phrase number 7, defray expenses.
Defray expenses, which is covering or paying part of the cost of something. But I have to ask, is this just a fancy corporate word for a discount?
No, actually, it's a common misconception. A discount lowers the retail price, right? The
Yeah.
vendor takes the hit.
Right, like a sale.
Exactly. But when you are defraying expenses, the price stays the same. What happens is a third party like an employer or a grant is actively providing money to offset your out-of-pocket costs.
Oh, okay.
Like the source's excellent example of a training stipend, the mechanism is about who is paying.
So if you were writing a professional email or a request, you would say, I am applying for the corporate grant to help defray expenses for my upcoming international study trip.
Yes, it demonstrates a highly sophisticated understanding of professional finance vocabulary.
Okay. But resolving the budget is just one part of the ultimate goal, right? You still have to fix the whole human mess. And that brings us to our final phrase number 8, set matters right.
Which means fixing a problem or resolving a mess.
So is this compared to just simply fixing it? Because I used to tell clients, don't worry, I fixed the issue. But they were often still angry.
Well, yeah, because fixing implies mechanics. You fix a server, you fix a flat tire. But that doesn't address the fact that you broke their trust.
Ah, that is the critical blind spot.
Exactly. Setting matters right has an emotional or relational nuance. It implies restoring harmony or moral balance. You're fixing a complex relational misunderstanding, not just repairing a broken machine.
So it's like a doctor resetting a dislocated shoulder. You're restoring alignment to the whole body. So if I'm explaining a late night to a colleague, I'd say, after the terrible misunderstanding with the client yesterday, she worked late into the evening to set matters right.
Perfect. You are signaling that the effort was dedicated to rebuilding trust.
Awesome. Well, we've traced the entire journey. But as any advanced learner knows, active recall is the best way to cement advanced vocabulary.
Absolutely. You need to test your brain under pressure.
So we are going to do a rapid-fire quiz. For each question, I'll give you options A, B, and C. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer before we reveal it. Ready?
Let's do it.
Question 1. Which sentence uses the phrase set matters right correctly based on the lesson? Option A. The dedicated project manager worked continuously throughout the long weekend to set matters right. Option B. The highly skilled carpenter used his specialized leveling tool to carefully set matters right. Option C. The completely exhausted delivery driver decided to immediately set matters right upon arriving there.
So the correct answer is option A, because set matters right is about fixing a complex problem or mess, just like working late to fix a misunderstanding.
Right. Question 2. Select the context where the phrase weigh heavily on someone is most appropriately used. Option A. The newly delivered heavy machinery will certainly weigh heavily on the weak warehouse floor. Option B. The incredibly dense theoretical textbooks will absolutely weigh heavily on the young university student. Option C. The unfortunate strategic business failure continued to weigh heavily on the senior executive today.
That would be option C, because it's not physical weight. Weigh heavily on someone is about persistent guilt or worry, like regretting that college choice we mentioned.
Perfect. Question 3. In which situation does someone accurately have the insolence? Option A. The completely broke university student suddenly discovered he did not have the insolence anymore. Option B. The incredibly arrogant junior employee actually managed to have the insolence to interrupt her. Option C. The highly protective waterproof coating ensures the material will constantly have the insolence required.
The answer is option B. To have the insolence is to have supreme audacity, like that intern interrupting the guest speaker.
Question 4. Which response best demonstrates the idiomatic use of lay something before someone? Option A. The lead researcher decided to comprehensively lay the undeniable factual evidence before the committee. Option B. The extremely exhausted hotel guest managed to quickly lay the heavy luggage before her. Option C. The dedicated construction workers continued to diligently lay the solid brickwork before the supervisor.
The correct one is option A. Remember, to lay something before someone is about presenting facts openly and formally to a group.
Halfway there. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase strike deeper, figuratively? Option A. The incredibly determined gold miners continually attempted to strike deeper into the mountain rock. Option C. The highly aggressive military commander ordered his soldiers to suddenly strike deeper today morning. Option C. The seemingly harmless passing comment managed to clearly strike deeper than she initially expected.
The answer is option C. It means a profound psychological impact when a small comment manages to strike deeper and affect your mood for days.
Question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates a commitment to turn one's brain to something? Option A. The frustrated university student worried the endless repetitive exercises turned his brain to mush. Option B. The ambitious young developer decided to successfully turn her brain to advanced computer programming. Option C. The severely confused witness attempted to turn his brain to the deeply hidden memories.
Option B is the right one. To turn one's brain to something is that active, intense dedication, just like turning your brain to mastering coding.
Almost done. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrasal verb defray expenses? Option A. The generous corporate scholarship was specifically designed to help defray expenses for struggling students. Option B. The heavily delayed international flight will unfortunately cause the airline to completely defray expenses. Option C. The meticulously organized accounting department attempted to forcefully defray expenses during the chaotic meeting.
That's option A, a third-party offsetting costs. The scholarship helps defray expenses, just like a study trip grant.
And finally, question 8. Which of the following statements correctly uses the phrase, fall into a pit, figuratively? Option A. The incredibly clumsy, adventurous hiker unfortunately managed to completely fall into a pit today. Option B. The dangerously arrogant corporate executive ignored all warnings and eventually fell into a pit. Option C. The freshly picked sweet fruits will unfortunately quickly fall into a pit without care.
The correct answer is option B, because to fall into a pit means to land in trouble of your own making by ignoring rules or warnings.
Wow. Okay, if you got all of those, you are well on your way to mastering this advanced vocabulary.
Yeah, you really are. And, as we wrap up this deep dive, I actually want to leave you with one last provocative thought to ponder.
Oh, I love these. Let's hear it.
Just think about how language shapes how we perceive our professional failures. When we use precise phrases like falling into a pit rather than just vaguely saying, I messed up, we are acknowledging our active role in digging that hole.
Oh, wow.
So, does holding ourselves to that level of linguistic accountability actually make us better decision makers in the workplace?
Oh, that is incredibly profound. The words we use don't just describe our reality, they actually build it.
Exactly. When you upgrade your vocabulary, you upgrade your professional clarity.
Language as a tool for absolute accountability. Such a phenomenal takeaway. Well, that is all for today's deep dive into these 8 idioms. We wish you the absolute best of luck applying these phrases in your next big meeting or your upcoming IELTS exam.
Good luck, everyone.
Keep practicing, keep challenging your vocabulary, and we will catch you next time.